Department.
Welcome to the February 16th Town Center
Yeah.
Committee meeting.
Yep.
We usually open with public comment. I notice we do have a public here.
Yeah.
Peter.
Hello.
Hi, Peter. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us anything that you have in mind?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. And it's good to meet you guys all, even if virtually. My name is Peter Ehrlich. I'm a resident here of Richmond, and I live right down on Church Street, actually. Last November, I quit my job to focus fully on reducing the human effects of climate change. And I'm a founding member of the 0% Club, an organization dedicated to help people reach their own personal net zero as quickly and affordably as possible. In 2020, the Vermont passed the Global Warming Solutions Act. This bill aligns us with the Paris Accords and requires that we do our part to address climate change by cutting carbon emissions 80% and achieving net zero by 2050. Vermont is not on track to meet these goals. And unfortunately, 2050 is not a sufficiently ambitious goal. Anyone watching the dialogue around COP27 last fall saw a lot of talk around climate justice on a global scale. A just solution has developed countries picking up the timeline to 2040 or earlier to create slack for countries with far less wealth and far less per capita energy consumption. Today, we're discussing renovations for the Richmond Center, and I invite you to ask, how long are these renovations supposed to be good for? It is 2023 now, and if we want our work to last just 15 years, that brings us almost exactly to 2040. The timelines are coming up, and the time to act is now. We have to lead by example because there are a whole lot more buildings which must all get to net zero quickly under the GWSA. Please use the ARPA funds to reach net zero on the Richmond Center. Thanks.
Peter, thank you for your comments. It looks like maybe you wrote those down. And if you did, we'd actually welcome you to send them to us. You can send them to me or to
You.
yeah, probably me.
Chair.
And I'll share them with the rest of the committee.
I would be happy to do that. Sure.
Thank you, Peter.
Excellent. Okay. So seeing no other public, the next item on our agenda is to meet. Did we get this grant? You know, Diane, did we get the REDI grant?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
you're all set.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Yay.
Which grant?
Oh, yeah, it's.
I love those rolling grants where you don't have to
Oh,
wait.
it is just a great little program. I mean, I can get it approved, overnight, but I mean, it's very simple and,
That was last week we applied.
oh, yeah. No, it's
So
great.
just some background for anybody who's going to watch this. We discovered a grant that's run through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board that pays for technical assistance to communities that are looking to do big, community development projects. The town center renovation project fits their definition. So we applied for that grant and we got it. And the way it works, as I understand it, it costs the town nothing. The VHCP, the contract with the consultant is directly with VHCP. And we get the benefit of having a professional consultant who can help us look for potential grant sources and hopefully help us put together some applications. So Diane was actually on the top of the list,
Mhm.
and we were lucky to get her. She was available. So she was asked for and assigned to this project from VHCB, or is it VHCB or is it Mariah who makes the decisions? Is she directly with VHCB?
She works, she's,
Mhm.
yes, she's a staffer at VHCB. Yeah, and she runs the REDI program. Yeah.
So correct me if
does REDI stand
whatever I missed.
I have no idea. What does REDI stand for? Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Rural Economic Development Initiative.
Yes.
REDI, REDI.
Yes.
I call it, Mariah's program.
Yeah.
So she's the staff person. Mariah Noth is the staff person at VHCB. And Diane contracts directly with her. So
Yeah.
Diane, why don't you explain like how this program works and what
Sure.
you know, what your background is and what you can do for us?
Happy to, happy to. Yes, thanks so much for having me. It's great to have an in-person meeting because I've been doing a lot of them that haven't. So it's great to come out and actually look at the building again and all
Yeah.
that. So, thank you. So I've been doing this for, over 20 years, we'll say. I started out actually at City Hall. I worked for Bernie when he was mayor.
Oh,
And the reason partly the reason I became a grant writer was because they said, well, we have an SBA grant for this program you're going to run. And if you want to keep doing it, you need to raise the money to do it. And then magically overnight, you become a grant writer. So over the years, I mostly at this point do federal grants. And that's primarily because if people are going to pay me, they want big grants, right? It doesn't really make sense for me to write a lot of small ones. So I mostly write federal grants. And that's what REDI really also supports because they realize that that's such a more complicated process than many. They want to help the small rural towns be able to access those grants. So that's a lot of what we do. I do with them anyhow. So over the course, raised $30 million or so, helped the Department of Health during the pandemic with $60 million in grants for a variety of things, health disparity, et cetera. So all sorts of different, I'm sort of a generalist, so I do many things. I enjoy municipal work because I started out my career there. So that's close to my heart. And in general, in this case, we would probably do what Mariah calls a fundraising mapping, which essentially is taking a look at what your needs are. And I like to start with a really strong project description that we all agree on. So, what does this look like? Give me a page that we can send around to people and talk to different funders about the project. So specifically, sometimes some people phase it. It depends. I don't know exactly where you're at in the process, but that's always nice. We talked about chunks. I think, Jeff, you were talking to someone about different people paying different pieces of the project. So kind of phasing it so people can say, yeah, we really want to do the windows, or we're really more interested in this or that.
So
I really encourage that kind of development of a really strong statement. So we all kind of know where we're going. From there, look at the variety of sources. I know you listed some in your application, and I did take a look at those a little bit. So those are certainly possibilities. We'll look for other things as well. I know you really interested in historic preservation. My sense overall, I mean, I'm sorry to say there's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of little money. So it becomes administering a lot of smaller grants, and that's just the nature of that money for some reason or another. Anyhow, that said, so we'll work together. I'll put together this list for you. So it can be a list of the different grant sources, the deadlines and all that important stuff. And then I'll suggest what I think the phasing might be of how you might go about that. If you want federal money, there's a whole series of things you have to do, as I'm sure you're all well aware. The 106 review and this review and that review. And that's what all has to sort of start moving forward if you want federal money. And I assume we were talking about $6 or $8 million, that's where you're going to have to go, right? I mean, you can do some of your own bonding and, whatever you can tolerate, but I assume you're going to mostly look at federal money. One question I did have is the USDA program. When I looked it up, it looked to me like you weren't eligible because your median income is too high.
it is too high.
Okay,
I
so
talked to the.
no
I
loan, no
talked
grant,
to the
right?
guy
Nothing.
that-
nothing-
We could do the loan program, but
Okay.
it would not be a very advantageous.
That's what I thought.
The percent varies based
Yes.
on the
Mhm.
median income.
Yeah,
Yeah, I went to a workshop recently and had a conversation with him, and Richmond's a fairly wealthy
Right.
town.
yeah,
In
yeah.
the scheme
actually
of
shocked.
Vermont,
Yeah, I'm
in the
shocked.
scheme of Vermont, it is, yeah.
Well, I was a little because I went and looked it up and
Yeah.
they have all chart and then there was zeros. And I thought,
Yeah.
ooh, that doesn't look good. So, which is too bad because those are bigger chunks of money. I mean, that's what's
Mhm.
nice about them, right?
Yeah,
But by the time, as you say, when you get down to lower percentages, the match gets really high. And you might be able to get money someplace
Right,
else less
and
expensive.
there
At least
might-
That's what
yeah.
the folks have told me,
Yeah.
in terms of municipalities.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I just wanted to throw that out so we don't go down that road and waste time.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I would think that my understanding of the USDA programs is grants are harder. And the low interest loan guarantees are easier and could be meaningful, so
Yeah.
a low interest loan, might be attractive.
right,
If we
right
get it-
now.
If you can get, if you can get it lower than the bond bank, I don't know.
Well, I don't, yeah, I'm not,
No,
I'm not an expert on that by any means, but I will tell you, it comes with a lot of strings.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I think it's a very expensive grant or loan to actually administer from your point of view. That's been my experience. It's not simple by any means. It's the bond bank is going to be a
think I
lot
re-
more direct,
I
right?
think I remember Connie saying, oh, federal money, you have to be careful because that's the finance assistant in the town.
Yeah.
She was very cautious about what kind of federal
Yeah.
money we went after, because there's a lot of extra staff work
Yeah.
involved in administering it, and the accounting has to be separated
Mhm.
out. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that cost money
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. And some you can get reimbursed for.
Yes.
But you really have to, when you're thinking about doing it, you need to include all that stuff on the front end, or
Mm.
else you end up at the end without having enough money
Yeah.
to do the work. So,
Davis Bacon stuff really did that. Wow.
yeah, but there are people who do that, who do that for you, and you
Yeah.
just put the money in to pay them to do it. I mean, that, and you
Yeah.
can choose, I mean, a lot of the nonprofits I work for just will not do federal money. It's just more than they just do not have the infrastructure. They're all reimbursement. They just don't have, they can't have access to that kind of money. They don't want to take out lines of credit and
Right.
stuff. So, that's getting into the weeds, but essentially, that's something to think about. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to be sure, because I was going to give them a ring.
I mean, you're
not.
welcome to call him, but that
Yeah.
our quick conversation was,
Wasn't-
I don't think Richmond's gonna qualify
Yeah,
for the grant program, because
Lori's she's our ad hoc.
I've been doing the grant stuff
Ah,
but
great.
I am very happy
it's great to meet you. Sorry.
to not be doing the grant stuff.
But having the background's great, because that's.
Right, and I used to work for United Way,
Oh, nice,
So-
perfect, Good.
and I was on the impact side, distributing the money
nice.
that we got
Nice.
donated, not the fundraising side of it.
Right, I hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's kind of where
Yeah,
I'm coming
good.
from, and I'd love to hear sort of what your priorities are. I mean, I know there's a lot to be done here, so some of this is kind of thinking, okay, where do you want to go first? And what kind of, I know you were talking about ARPA funds, and that's something that's a possibility, and,
So the ARPA money is kind of in-house. It's, the town already has the money, and
Right.
we're trying to decide,
Yep.
how we're going to utilize it. We got 1.2 million. And we've got, we're starting to get requests enough to fill it up, to use it all.
I'm sure, and more, right?
And so it's interesting. It's kind of careful what you wish for, It's harder to disperse money than people
It
might
is.
think.
Well, it's very hard to
Hard to make the
decide.
choice, yeah.
I was
It's
on the
hard to
team
decide.
that decided,
Yeah.
and I was the staff support. And
So-
the volunteers had very difficult conversations
Sure.
about.
So the
how
ARPA
to-
committee is now just about at that point.
Yeah.
The ARPA committee's been meeting for over a year, and they've done an extensive community engagement process. Got over 500 suggestions on how to spend it.
Mm,
They grouped into different, categories like
Mm.
sidewalks and recreation, and the buildings is part of it. So there, I have no doubt we'd have no trouble spending it all or using it all. I'd like to think of it more as like investing, investing. And, as Peter said, this building's going to be around for another 100 years,
For sure. yeah.
Putting money into this building is an investment. It's not just an expense. So our hope, so this committee has been meeting for 4 years. A lot of what we've focused on so far has been deferred maintenance. A lot of it has been in the library. We've done
Mm,
several $100,000 worth of projects in the library to
mm,
really try to catch it, before it got too bad. And we still have several $100,000 to do left on the library. That'll be your next project, is trying to figure out how they get money.
I
for
look
that.
forward to it.
Right.
But right now, for the past 6 months or so, we've been focusing on this building. And we've solidified what the town center fund from the rental income is for. It's for both buildings, for this campus. We don't have any decision-making authority on this committee. We make recommendations to the select board. We do that on a fairly regular basis, and I'm on the select board, and the select board is looks favorably on this committee. It's the first time in quite some time that we've had any committee look seriously at, deferred maintenance issues and, and trying to deal with that. Where we're on track, the instructions we've been given by the select board and where we're at with the design process is we're in preliminary design for a pretty significant renovation of this building. We probably, any construction project would be disruptive. And, you know, the thought is doing as much as possible in one time is the least disruptive that we can be, you know, and it gives you more options of what you're going to do, you know, you're going to,
Mhm.
you can't, so, you know, one of the original problems that we identified is the windows are really old. They're the original
Mhm.
windows and they're really pretty leaky. And there is no fresh air ventilation. So the fresh air ventilation is our leaky windows. So if you were to go and replace the windows,
Then you have,
then you have to, you know, then you could, you know, make everybody in the building sick. You know, and if you were to replace the ventilation first, and just in and of itself, you'd have to oversize it for the load because the load would be so much higher because we got leaky windows. It really makes sense to do both at the same time. And doing both at the same time, you're over $1 million anyways, you know.
yeah.
There's 60 windows in the building, they're huge. And they're challenging. We are thinking comprehensively. We got authorization to hire Black River Design. They're in the middle of programming right now. We've decided what we're going to try to keep as uses of the building, pretty much what we have right now as much as possible. What we began to discuss at our last meeting is committees have been approaching the ARPA committee with asks. This committee has not done that yet. So what we were going to do for the latter part of this meeting was to talk about that. We can still talk about it. But
We don't have a quorum.
we don't
to
have
vote.
we don't have we won't have a formal ask for the next ARPA committee, but we can
Okay.
start moving that down the road.
Yeah.
One question I would have for you is that I definitely understand the complexities of federal grant programs. I've dealt with DOE a lot. It's,
Yes.
it's challenging at best.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of state money floating around now.
Mhm.
And clearly one of the a sweet spot for this building is trying to figure out energy issues. The municipal resiliency program is the rules are being written for that right now. I talked to Katie Buckley about that.
Good.
My understanding is she's helping write that. She's with BLCT,
Yep.
but not League of
Mhm.
Cities and
Yep.
Towns.
Yeah.
And encouraged me to talk to you.
Oh, good, yeah,
And,
Several people brought up Mariah and the program
good.
all at the
Excellent.
same time, and that's how we got here.
Good, good. I'm
No, you're
glad.
in the right place.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
And I think where that program's going is the maximum grant award is going to be 500,000.
Yep, that's what I found. I didn't find much.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
BGS is, yeah,
Yeah.
I printed out what BGS had to say. Because I wasn't feeling, because this is state money, right? This isn't fed to the state, is it?
It was ARPA money that went to the state.
Oh, so it is federal though. So it has. all
No,
federal
it's not,
rules?
it's not,
No?
we don't have federal rules on it.
Is that true?
That is not
think we
exactly true.
Still have,
There are federal.
Like you'd have to have 106 review.
The library,
Right.
the library ARPA money that's went to the Department of Libraries does have
Still-
federal
I'm
rules.
pretty sure you still have to follow the same rules,
Yeah.
because we claim there's
Yeah.
lost revenue, it opens up what we can spend it on. But I think we still have to like follow the same procurement policies and things like that with the federal money.
I'm pretty sure, because I
But
think
it's-
CRRP is like that too. The recovery money is also
Okay,
that
Yeah.
they're doing is also
Yeah.
subject to all the federal rules. I mean, it's not a showstopper. You're gonna have to do that, but just so everybody's clear, I mean, you'll get 500, but you'll spend.
But
a
if we're
chunk of that on the
applying,
administrative
yeah,
stuff, you know.
but the library, the Department of Libraries has 26 million to
Oh,
distribute right
nice.
now.
Nice,
They have 16.4 million of ARPA
wow.
and 10 million from a CDS from Patrick
Yeah,
Leahy.
Nice.
And I signed up, they're doing a webinar to talk about what the rules are gonna be on the 28th, and I already
Yeah,
registered.
good, okay.
So, because there was no information,
Right.
maximums, I don't know.
And the municipal program is
Yeah.
just for municipal buildings. It's not for schools.
Oh, yeah.
Schools a whole different pot of
Mhm.
money. And everything that I've read and, I participated in some of the legislative webinars on that and some of the testimony on that. It's really focused to projects like this,
Hmm.
and we're pretty far along.
This is the energy one, the municipal.
Yeah, the
energy, yeah.
energy
Yeah.
one. We're pretty far along. It's what we've hired the architect to do is to help us with programming, do preliminary design enough to be able to come up with a budget that we can put out for a bond vote. And we want to do that. We'd like to do that this year. We're shooting for November right now.
Hmm.
Wow.
Okay, so we have a lot of information,
Mhm.
which I think is going to be helpful for grant writing. One of the things I'd like to ask them to do is to, if in their construction estimating, if they can pull out the energy piece of it,
Sure.
Hmm.
which I think they'll be able to
Yeah,
do.
because this is very specific. This is the BGS program.
Mhm.
Weatherization, thermal efficiency, supplement or replacing fossil fuel heating systems with more efficient renewable or electric alternatives. That's pretty specific. I assume they're going to stay. I mean, the legislature still hasn't finalized this, is my
Well,
understanding.
the legislature has the rule, the rules
The
haven't
rules
been
are still
written.
being made?
No, I
Oh,
think
okay.
I think it's at, the LCT is writing the regulations for it. I think
Oh,
as
okay,
far as the
good.
legislation, it did pass.
Okay,
and
okay.
It was like
Okay.
I'm
46
getting confused
million.
with another one. Believe it or not.
Yeah, there's a lot of money out there
There's a
right
lot of
now.
money floating around. Yes, there
I
is.
know.
Absolutely is.
And something that we have heard, in the ARPA committee has heard as well, is energy issues are important, that
Hmm.
investing in the energy component of this building actually reduces our operating budget,
Hmm.
which is like many of the other things that we might invest some money in. The ARPA committee really doesn't want to create something that is going to cost a lot in maintenance.
Hmm.
So probably the most popular thing that the ARPA committee got was an indoor swimming pool.
Hmm.
Well, good luck with that. So like,
The
$1.2 million.
maintenance costs
is not-
down the road are like really high and
1.2 million wouldn't even cut it. So like, we wouldn't be able to build it, and then it would be a very expensive building to maintain. We don't have any place to put it. So like,
I know.
while it was a really popular suggestion, it's not one that,
Right.
will come out of the ARPA committee because of that. But reducing the operating cost of this building
Yeah.
really hits a lot of criteria.
You have data on if you do this X, this is what you'll save in the long run over some period of time. I mean, I'm just thinking about when you're looking for money, to make that argument. I mean, I always hear in homes, windows, everybody wants new windows, but they don't really do enough for you to justify the cost.
Right.
And I have no
Right.
idea if that's true in a building
Right.
like this. It's a whole different
It is
situation,
true.
but.
And there are other good reasons to replace windows. So, something that I would, that I'm pretty sure of that where we would fit is ventilation. So like the heating, ventilating, if we remove these or we do anything with these drop ceilings, we have to kind of completely rework the heating, ventilating and air conditioning systems in the building, which would be, that'll be a big ticket item.
And you would be using renewable fuels, is that the theory?
Well, we haven't gotten that far, but
Yeah.
But
I'm
if
just looking
I
at this, it's very
continue to sit
specific.
on this,
Yeah,
I do
please
all the
tell me.
HVAC
Yeah,
stuff for
excellent.
efficiency for months. So if I continue to sit on
Yeah,
this committee,
you'll
I
help
will
us with
ensure that
Yeah.
we are absolutely
yeah.
not going to lock this building down into a bubble.
we have benchmarked the historical energy use of the building. I've done
Right.
that.
And there's probably some industry standards about square feet and what kinds of. aren't
Yeah, I mean, if
there?
I asked you to.
If you're gonna put
Did
in-
you say, okay,
yeah.
if we do half the
If
windows.
you're gonna
this is
put
what-
in this, yeah,
It's in terms of energy savings.
Yeah,
in
like
terms
the
of
long
cost
term,
savings.
You could do, look at climate, I mean, just sort of the whole big, can you do the whole big picture? I mean, what?
Well, I mean,
what's
this,
possible, I guess.
I mean, it is possible to make this building net zero, which would, and carbon net
Really?
zero. Yeah.
Would it be just so far out of, the price be so high that you
I-
just couldn't even imagine it?
I
or
don't
is
think
it-
so. To
We
me,
haven't
that
even
is very
discussion
much on the
yet.
table as part of this conversation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that would be very exciting for these grant opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Because most people aren't, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if people are thinking about this, but I don't hear about it very often. So, any of that kind of information, and again, it's probably modeling and way beyond my
Yeah.
understanding, but,
I could reach out. I
be
own a Blanchard because South Burlington's is net zero.
Oh, the Black River will know how to do
Yeah,
this.
because
Black
she was
River will-
the construction person for the
As-
town hall there.
Yeah.
As
yeah,
part of the
yeah.
design process, they
Work with her.
have to model the building
Yeah.
in order to be able to figure out if it's gonna meet code for one,
Okay.
and how to size the equipment and.
That'll be part of what they're working on now.
They will be working on that.
Good. Good.
So,
We're just doing they're in the process of like taking the needs of all the different parts, trying to program it into the square footage. There's do we need an addition or not for the police department and that kind of thing. So we haven't gotten to the details of the design and walls and HVAC and all that lighting. That's all. Yeah. But we
But-
can't do any of that before we get to some
and they will.
concept
Yeah.
of
Okay.
the.
How long will
That's gotta be part of
figure
it.
out?
So, their charge is to do enough design to be able to come up with a construction budget.
And by a certain date?
We hope to have a vote by November,
Oh, okay, so you would need it, I don't know, what?
Oh, we
summer?
would need it
summer. It'll be
soon,
summer.
but yeah.
Summer.
I mean, they're talking about a preliminary, once we settle on the addition, no addition is a big,
Then we can start talking about
Question that-
floor plans.
yeah,
You know, that
Yeah.
we can start shopping floor plans around to the community. So that, that's the first step for the community buy-in is this work?
this
Is
is
the
what it's
space
gonna look, it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
And then the next step is, once that's finalized, then you have to, in order to even do the construction estimating, you've got to model the building for energy use. And it's a matter of how many windows, what the square footage of the windows are, and how much, what the heat loss is through the walls and the ceiling. They're not bad. The walls have been, they have been insulated, and we've got a fair amount of insulation in the roof. The energy use in this building, we did some weatherization projects to cut the energy use by a third. So, we're
Yeah.
better, and our boilers are relatively new. I think we replaced them about 10 years ago. Which would be useful for backup, and still counts for net zero. We've got a new roof, relatively new roof, 5 years maybe. Which is encouraging to me for solar. If it's a new roof, then we could consider doing solar, and if we do heat pumps and solar on the roof, that's gonna get us a long ways towards net zero.
Yeah, and I think the hard part is the part that we've been going through for the last
Mhm.
18 months, trying to get the programming straight.
Yeah.
There's so many
Yeah,
interests, and when it
Yeah.
comes out, the rest of that technical stuff is actually pretty easy
Yeah.
relatively.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be fun. This is why we've got Jake.
That's
back
why
here.
I
No,
won't say
that's
I don't care about the programming, but I don't really care about the
Yeah.
programming.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is what my entire career has been with buildings and making buildings efficient.
Mhm.
And so it wouldn't be hard if we knew exactly
Right.
what we were working with.
Right.
The issue is there's so many, it's a town,
yeah. But
community.
Black
building
River
with a
has
lot of
gotten us
interest.
pretty far along that with they've been pretty directive about, okay, here's what we need from you. Okay, now we need this from you. They went around and interviewed everybody and, did
Well,
all
this
that.
committee has
You
been
know?
plugging away at this for a long time. I mean, when
Yeah.
I've had, this is sort of my second run through with a big gap in between, and the first run through, there was a lot of interviewing and bringing people in to hear about what they would like to do in this space, right? There's a lot of interest in being a part of this building, and so
Yeah.
it's tricky to come up, talk about making decisions around how this building actually gets used. I mean, yes, Josh works here every day, right? And we've got all of this stuff that's just core function of the town, but then we also have these additional sort of auxiliary spaces. And you were explaining this today earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
tenants.
So understanding how those will get used, and then there's
Yeah.
all the flood stuff, and whether the basement can continue
Yeah.
to be used, and
Right,
uh,
that could be an issue with federal money. Cause I think, is it Frank who does USDA? I can't remember the guy's name that was there's some federal money because the building's in the floodplain
Yeah,
might not be available
Yes,
to
yeah,
us.
yeah.
So that's gonna be something as you look for
They always
grants.
ask that question.
I know, it's
They
on,
want to see the maps.
it's on the grant application.
And
They
I
wanna
usually
see
get to
the
say
map.
no, which is kind of nice, but.
Yeah, but this time
That's what I'm
you
probably
have to
guessing.
say yes, unfortunately.
I mean, it's literally inches.
Mm.
It's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Our understanding is we did have flood elevations done by, a site engineer just last week and confirmed that. And our understanding from him is that yes, we touch the floodplain and that does have consequences for particularly if any finishes in the basement. You can't use, if it's anywhere in the floodplain, you can't use it for occupied space. You can use it for storage, but you can't have any materials that above the flood, below the flood level that could rot. So that matters for walls and shelving and anything like that. And you need to allow the floodwaters to enter and exit the basement. So it's called wet proofing. Which is,
I've learned a whole lot.
I bet you have. I bet you have.
About
Is there a
this.
place where all these studies are in one place that I can access them? Studies and
Black
reports?
River probably has all this.
yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we have a site engineer. We're
Yeah.
actually putting a lot of money into the site engineer.
Yeah,
So yes, we have all of that information.
I mean, it would just be helpful for me to take a look at it. so
Yeah,
that's why I asked.
And Black River has been quite good at, as Lori says, at
yeah,
walking us through the
Yeah.
various different steps. That
yeah. And all the minutes from this committee meeting are on the website.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to just look at the
Okay.
last few, since we started working with Black River, those might be.
as far as energy stuff, I applied for congressional directed spending
Yep.
grants. I got one from Bernie, specifically for energy.
Mhm.
And I made it, and then it fell off the table at the last minute.
Oh,
It's disappointing, but what that means is that I have the language for it.
Great.
Which,
Mhm.
it talks about the windows and the HVAC,
Mhm.
net zero, and
Right.
so I've got we have a lot of language. Do you have language for this building? You might not. Probably
I
not.
have a lot of stuff from Karen about the history of the building.
that would be great.
In terms of when it was built in two parts and all that
Mhm.
stuff, and yeah, plus from Harriet Riggs's book, she has a whole
Yeah.
chapter on it, so there's a lot of,
I'll leave these. for-
Karen is the Richmond Historical Society
Great,
person, so
good.
she has a lot of it,
But we actually have a
history.
lot of information. on this
Yeah.
building. And, because, we've gone through this, not quite as extensively as this,
Right.
but we've gone through this process on this building
Mhm.
many times.
Mm,
And we've applied for many different grants. There's a lot of information about
Yep.
it.
I guess the one thing I'm thinking about is if, when the regulations come out for the energy grants, will you be in a position where you can apply? Will you have what you need to apply? I'm not quite sure I understand that. If that's,
Depends on what they're gonna ask for.
I would think that we could scramble to get whatever
Yeah.
they need. I've been talking with Katie Buckley.
Mhm.
And so this sounds like a perfect project for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I would think yes. They won't be able to give us enough money to meet the entire cost of it.
oh, no,
So
they only have
No.
45 million, I think,
Right,
total
so
is what
it-
I'm seeing.
they, and I think the maximum grant amount that's been talked about is 500,000.
Yeah.
And that would get us a long ways. That plus ARPA money, could get us a long ways towards net zero,
Mhm.
I think.
What about IRA money?
Yeah, so are you familiar with the Inflation Reduction Act?
Is this the one that they're working on the budget adjustment? Is that part of that or
No.
not?
No,
Oh, okay, no.
No,
okay.
it's
already been approved,
Yeah.
right?
It's one of those big Biden bills, right? And
it's the largest
Inflation.
energy bill in the history of the United States, $370 billion.
Wow, okay.
It's not just energy, it's also GHG related. There's all these equity type components to it as well. But it's money for everything. I mean, as long as there's a tie back to something to do with energy,
Mhm.
carbon, every type of building, every type of customer. So I can't imagine that there isn't.
between that
Big
and the
chunk of money.
And who's, is that
the
DO?
infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
And are the rules out?
No,
No, they're,
Same place. Well, that's actually
they're-
good for you.
they're saying March, April, so,
Oh, okay, that's soon.
everybody's
is the
saying.
feds.
Yeah.
This is the feds.
well, they issued a whole bunch of RFIs and. I mean, a lot of them, and people have been, all these
Are
organizations.
you guys doing that? Are you guys responding to those? RFIs?
We have been deliberate in what we are getting involved with and what we aren't, because there's so many people, so many organizations throwing their hat in on this stuff. And so we're paying attention to all of it, and we're signing on and partnering where appropriate, and we have directly responded to a couple, 2, 3, 4.
Excellent.
Okay.
So what's interesting about that, Bill, so, you know, a lot of the like renewable energy and federal incentives have been tax incentives, which, you know, municipalities have not been eligible for because they don't pay tax, you know, not income tax. However, there is a provision in it for specifically for renewable energy for like solar.
Yeah.
It's a 30% tax credit that municipalities can claim as what it's direct payment, I think it's called. And so you can get a check that a municipality can get a check for 30% of the installed cost of a solar project. So that, I think that's worth thinking about. I think that there are other provisions as well. It's like the rules haven't, it's not all tax.
No, there's
some
there were a lot of so
rebates and whatnot.
yeah, it was primarily modifications to
Existing program.
tax code in one respect. So it's addressing 25C, 25D,
Mhm.
179D, and others. But then there's other sections to this which are actually directly related to more like rebates.
Oh, that's
direct
right.
payments. So there's a whole section of the law that was committed.
So there is, my recollection is that those were the incentives, the design incentives that went through the architect. Are you familiar with
The one-
those?
Um,
So if you reduce energy consumption by X%, it was so much per square foot. And who can claim it is the architect, but the architect can pass it through to the client.
That's
It's a really,
busy.
it's a cool I've used it on schools, and
I think that's through that might be 179D.
yeah, I think it is. It's
Yeah.
179D, and it's a cool program because it's not based on the cost of the equipment. It's based on square footage.
You
can get up to $1.80 a square
There's a whole
foot.
table there, and it has to, there's different things that kick you into the higher dollar per square
Right.
foot, and I think there has to do with who you hire to do the work and whether they meet certain like tree or fair labor
Oh.
practices and things like
Oh.
that. So yeah.
We'll do that anyway. So like, you know, the Breadloaf, for example, is a union shop, you know, so we'll have to do that for any of the federal grants.
Yeah,
So, you know, I guess my recollection on that is that the highest you could get, there was one section for lighting, there's one for HVAC, and there's something else, maybe envelope. And it added up to $1.80 a square foot. It's 20,000 square foot. It's not that much money. It's $50,000,
mhm.
you know.
I think there's a lot more in
That's,
there.
that's
that would
where
be
Diane's
directly
gonna have to
applicable.
help us pick and choose what's gonna be worth,
Yes,
what's
So-
gonna be worth going
so
after.
absolutely.
The energy piece I'm an energy consultant as well. So, you know,
Yeah,
this
so
is,
you guys can help me with that one.
yeah, so we'll help you.
We're gonna check that
I will
out.
help you.
Yeah, we have that stuff.
Yeah,
But I think there's a lot.
And there's
there.
also the bill, BIL.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is with
Oh,
The bipartisan.
bipartisan infrastructure
Yeah.
legislation.
BIIA or something like that.
And that one, I
Infrastructure
do
improvement.
wonder if there's something there as well, because that's focused on buildings and
Mhm.
energy of buildings and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, and infrastructure, so.
yeah,
I would be surprised. I don't know as much about that particular legislation, but.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if there wasn't a big chunk of money.
And it could be, you know, VLCT could be a good resource for that.
Mhm.
You know, because they have to be thinking about that too, you know.
oh, yeah, they're
Right.
definitely on it. Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest challenge is just to wrap your arms around this and sort of figure out how to phase this. You know, what are all the things you want to do? And then how do you phase it to make sense in terms of the building and the renovations and in terms of getting money? So we have some.
What do you
sort of
mean
sense.
phase? So
Well, so you have a lot of different goals, right? You have a lot of different things you want to do. Well, which comes first? Like you said, you do the HVAC and the windows together. Is there going to be a separate building, another
I
building?
think
Is it
the
an
idea was
addition?
The idea
everything
is
else.
the
So-
whole-
It's gonna
it's
all
the
be-
whole foundational points. Yep,
you know,
And then I guess it's what do each of the pieces cost?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
who will
And
pay for
and
each of
when
those
you
pieces?
go to the bidding process, how do you want to ask the bidders to chunk out,
Right. Or maybe you do that.
or, yeah.
I mean, it'd be
Well, it's
nice if
easier
you.
for the
So
Yeah.
you know,
we
we have
can
a-
ask the
an
architect.
overall contractor to chunk it out.
We, can-
Yeah.
the part of the contract with Black River is to hire a construction estimator to come up
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
construction estimates, and we can ask them to do components, so energy certainly
I
should
would-
be.
Yeah, definitely. that-
Oh,
You
yeah.
definitely need that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, do you imagine you'd really bring, $8 or $10 million all at once and be ready to go? I mean,
That's what we're hoping for.
yeah? Could that really happen?
I mean, I
It
don't
just
know.
sounds kind
I mean,
of.
Was to do a bond.
Okay,
Clearly, any grant money reduces the
help.
bond.
Okay.
That we have to go.
so the bond
for.
will make up whatever you can't get elsewhere.
Yeah.
I just don't know how the timing will work out.
Right.
I sort of what
So
I don't know what
that's-
the final date is of this, but a lot of these have their own, once a year. They have their,
Yeah.
so it's hard sometimes to.
So ARPA has, supposedly, you're supposed to commit the money by 2024 and spend it by 2026.
Yeah.
So we're on target for that,
Mhm. How long would the construction take? Would it be, we're talking
So,
like 6
yeah.
months or a year just to do the construction or?
Yeah,
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
take 6 months anyways, probably
I would say it's more like a year.
could be longer, and that's gonna be a whole challenge.
But there's-
Really what the
Yeah.
scope is, but
The exterior of the
Right,
building,
Right,
because they say it's sound and the roof. is
might be
sound.
able to do,
But-
one floor at a time or something, and that's a whole nother thing that we,
Yeah,
Black
That
River
kind of
will tell
thing.
us how
Yeah.
how to do that.
Yeah.
that kind of thing often costs more to do it that way, so we'd have to decide.
Have to decide.
we get Josh a trailer and sit.
Yeah, I already warned the library, the select board meeting room was probably gonna be the community room for some long period of time.
That's actually a good point,
I warned Rebecca that she may have to be canceling things in there for a year, or at least, being able to use a portion of the room.
But that's all part
Yeah.
of the construction process. So the thinking of this committee, from pretty early on was, it's gonna take, a pretty substantial renovation,
Mm,
to make this building work, as it should. And we're gonna try, we'll see if the community will support it, but, the community has supported this building in the past, like quite a bit.
mm,
And, it's,
mm.
what did it cost to build? Originally, What did-
1906 and 1900.
and what kind of
1905 and
impact on it,
1907.
I think about that building, the library building
1981.
is like a really cool building, and even back in the day would have been really expensive, to have done it. There must have been people in the town that felt that was worth it.
Well, yeah, Karen knows who was the architect on this
Yeah, it was
building.
Boston, I think.
Because, yeah, we just looked it up. Yeah.
From the standpoint of, you talked about, or maybe these are my words, but about telling the story of
Mhm.
the building
Yeah.
and what
Yeah,
it is that
Yeah.
we're trying
Yeah.
to do here. And I think a big part of the story that we haven't mentioned is also about carbon. And I think there's there's
About
just
what?
a
I'm sorry.
carbon,
Carbon,
right?
okay.
Yeah,
Having this be a low carbon building. And I think there's a whole bunch of things
Mm,
that we bring to the table from that regard, right? New buildings are flashier. People like new, they can just build and design whatever they
Yeah.
want, level it. And this has been an argument however many years in this town about.
that's
this
why you
building.
got off of the committee in the first place.
I
know.
We're really gonna still
We
continue to
finally
argue about this.
decided on,
But we did.
we
But
got
there's
there.
this whole concept of embodied carbon, right? The
Yeah, the
carbon
embodied.
of the materials themselves and
The
you're
embedded
keeping
Yeah,
the
embodied.
foundation and the framing and the roof and
Yep.
so much of the building that there's a huge amount of carbon that's already sort of locked in here. And if we start going and raising it and putting a whole new building, that's a very carbon expensive kind of project. And then when you layer on top of that, we would make this operationally kind of net zero. So now you're talking about a building that has effectively zero carbon contribution, right? In a time where we're struggling to meet state targets and, there are a lot of there's a lot of federal momentum even behind this right now.
Mhm.
Seems to me that like a story of a small town in Vermont who is, making a commitment to that,
Yep.
keeping an older building and working with it. I think it's a great story and
Yep.
I would think that would be something we'd want to bring into the conversation. I don't know how that helps us get money. Like hoping that
I
that
think
triggers
it-
something
think
for
we'll
you,
figure it out.
but
Yeah, well, tell me, and what was the town you told me that does have a net zero old building? It's a municipal building.
Hartford.
Yeah,
Because it'd be
Hartford.
great to look at how they raised it, some of their money.
yeah.
That's, that's always something we do.
It's a
Yeah.
comparable size, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are doing, I mean, I'm not saying.
They
we
did
wanna
it
do
in,
exactly.
in a way that it doesn't compute to me. So it was a Breadlove was the one that was involved with that. They did a building assessment. We have a complete assessment
Good.
of this building
Good, no, we-
already. That was one of the first
Yeah.
things we did. And Breadlove did it. But they did a similar project down in Hartford. It's White River Junction Municipal Building.
Mhm.
And the story that I heard is that they passed the bond first.
Yes,
did a
that's what JJ said. They
Board of
passed
signing.
the bond
Did a-
before
did
they
a
had a
$5 million
building.
bond. We're gonna need to do
Yeah.
something, do $5 million bond, and then they
Yeah.
bid it out and said, you got $5 million to do this.
Yeah,
Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't work here.
no.
So,
Actually, I have an article about embodied energy that I could send you that.
Mhm.
I just went to a workshop on historic preservation and energy efficiency.
Excellent. Yes, good.
And that's where I met all the USDA people and all that.
Yeah.
But there was a whole long discussion about embodied energy. And the
did.
reason that you don't take down a building is because so much is just going, you're just
throwing
like
Lot of energy on
throwing
body parts,
away
depending
all
on your
this
plant.
energy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, in some ways you're sort of educating folks about this as well at the same time. And perhaps the
Exactly.
funders. So, but that's okay.
Well, the
That's a good
adaptive
thing.
reuse of buildings is just, it's
Yeah.
a more
Yep.
efficient use of resources. I
correct.
think people can relate to that,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
don't
Right.
throw it away and start new when you can turn something that you have.
especially when the building is not a wreck.
Right.
I mean, it's a
There aren't
perfectly
squirrels
good.
living in it, yeah.
Well, there were some
I'm
there was
sure.
some wildlife in the windows.
I'm sure, I'm sure, but yeah. So tell me, have you also, things like environmental review, section 106 review, all that stuff?
Haven't
Is that
done that.
Haven't gotten
Is that
there.
something that Black River is going to be involved in?
yes,
Okay, because those are things, honestly, when I see projects, that's what holds up the
It
project.
started.
Mm.
It's stuff you say, but we don't have to worry about archaeology. We don't have to worry about, it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you'd
you
be
do.
surprised. And it may just be, you have to get them all signed off on, but you got to at least gather enough data to sign off on them. So, I mean, I don't know, like, if have you done BCDP grants, CDBG grants? Through the,
You guys
for
have
this
had,
so that's
Yeah.
basically the same, I mean, all those things you do in a planning grant. A $60,000 planning grant, you do all these reviews and everything, and that's where you sign up, and then you move to implementation. So I just throw that out there because those things really do need to get done, and you may have some of this stuff from other past projects you've
Yeah,
done, and you
probably
can
not
bring
for
that
this
in,
building.
you know,
probably not for this
but
building, and there's gonna be,
timing's tough,
there's gonna be.
and people are busy,
sprints.
and getting them, nailing them down to help you do those kind of things is really important. So,
What I've heard, so like I deal a lot with schools,
Mm.
the energy use in schools, and what I've heard, they've got a boatload of money too. And just like towns got, this ARPA money, the schools got similar money, it's ESSER, I forget what the acronym is for. But everybody got it, and they all got it at the same time, and we only have so many contractors.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
they're booked out, and even if we do a bond vote in November, that doesn't necessarily mean we do construction in 2024. It might be 2025.
there may be preliminary stuff that gets done in
Right.
2024,
Right.
but
Well,
yeah.
and the big thing, I mean, I went to a conference, I went to the Vermont Community Development Association conference, and there were some contractors there who just said, we can't get the materials we need, and
Right.
we have to wait till you guys have the money in order to buy them, and sometimes they're pre-buying stuff and storing it in places, and, I mean, they can't get pipes, and they can't get, a lot of infrastructure
Well,
stuff.
the library project, the first round of RFP, we sent it to 17 people, we got 0 bids,
Yeah,
0.
so. but
The
so you know
second
what's gonna
round, we got
happen?
1 bid.
Yeah, so I think what's gonna happen is even though there's this deadline in 2026 or whatever it comes, it's
It'll get
it's
extended.
aspirational.
Yeah,
It's
It is
aspirational.
aspirational.
So, I mean, we
Well, yeah.
try for it, but we all kind of know, it's
Well,
not gonna happen.
Yeah,
So-
we have a state division of historic preservation grant,
Oh, good.
small, $14,000. And Caitlin just says,
Yeah.
just write me a letter.
Yeah.
Nobody can get them done in the
Right.
time frame. Just write me a letter. If you can't get this part done, but you can spend the money on the building, write me a letter.
Yeah.
Tell me that you're changing what you're gonna spend it on.
Yeah.
Because
They're
We want
frustrated
you to
too.
put the money in the building.
Sure, and they're frustrated too. you know,
Yeah.
'cause-
Oh, yeah, she's telling everybody,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know.
sure you
So
do, yeah.
Diane, what's our next steps with you? What do
Yeah.
you?
So, our next step. So I'm gonna write up a proposal for you, basically talking about all the things we talked about.
Mhm.
Great.
And I'll send that over to you for your approval, and then I'll send it to Mariah, and she'll give us the final stamp that we can get started.
Okay, so
Okay.
And
this
I'll
committee-
try to gather, if you can gather some of this material information
Yeah.
for me and, put it wherever it's convenient, or send it to
Mhm.
me, that would be really helpful, so I can
Yeah.
get up to speed a little bit.
we might start collecting stuff on our webpage, on the town webpage.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome, yeah.
I don't know if we need it to be all public though, right now.
I think it's public,
I don't know.
no matter
It is
what. isn't
public.
it, John?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. it's
so I can work with Karen and Rebecca to
Yeah, I think-
find the history of the building and just write that up for you.
Oh, yeah, that'd
Just,
be good. People love
and
that.
not like pages and pages and pages,
no.
but a brief,
Yeah, that'd
you
be
know.
nice. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's part of telling the story. So,
Yeah.
and if there's
And
any.
we do
interesting-
have some old pictures and things,
Good.
so
And we'll need
if
them.
you
I'm
get down
sure.
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
Uh, So this committee meets like twice a month.
Mhm.
Have been for, I think we've been meeting
4
twice a
years.
month for like 4 years.
Yeah,
It's like really pretty.
And we
impressive.
Yeah, actually,
yeah,
coming up on that now.
yep.
So if you can get it to us before our next meeting, we can approve it at our next meeting.
Yeah, do you, is it the same day, like first and
Yeah,
third,
it's-
or is it?
Whatever this is in the,
It's
in the other.
a weird schedule.
Oh,
Thursday before every select board meeting, which actually we're gonna talk about our next meeting.
Monday? On Mondays, your select board meetings?
So the Mondays it's the first and third Monday of the month for select board.
Okay.
So these are the Thursdays prior to that, so it's not
But not
always the
necessarily.
first and
Okay.
third Thursday.
If you have a 5-week month, yeah.
Yeah,
So do you put that, you post the schedule on the website though?
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's on there. Okay.
And we do need to look, because we're postponing the next select board meeting, so we need to.
Okay,
figure
so what's
out
your
what we're
next
gonna need.
committee meeting?
Yeah, that's what
That was actually, I was just, that's what we have to figure out.
Okay, you'll let me know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, can you
guess
approve
March
things?
is
You have to
arbitrary.
meet to approve things or?
Well,
can you-
March is just delayed by one
Oh.
week, but
And then town meeting, yeah.
yeah, so it would either be, normally it would be the second, which would be right before the sixth, but we're delaying that sixth meeting until the 13th, right?
And of course, I'm
We
gonna
should-
go on vacation in March, so
Yeah,
it's gonna be.
and we should probably just meet the second and then the 16th. Honestly, because
Fine with
otherwise
me.
we're gonna meet back to back. We'd meet the 9th and the 16th.
I think we had said that, didn't we?
I don't
Yeah, I
think.
think we said the second
Yeah.
a while
We already
ago.
said, we already talked about this?
Yeah, no, we were talking about something else around the police thing.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I don't know. And we
maybe we
were
didn't-
plotting out our meetings
maybe
with
we
Black
didn't meet.
River.
factor in. Okay, so let's just keep it to the second.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'll put it in the minutes.
Thanks.
meet March 2
Mhm.
and 16.
Okay, so
Okay,
two,
well,
yeah.
So we'll be a little of an exception to the regular rule, but that makes sense.
And you like, when do you send out? So when do you need materials by for the committee?
It's a little less.
That week,
Yeah, sometime that
And
week.
if that's too tight for you, that's
No,
okay. too.
no, it's not all too tight. No, I'd really like to get started. I'm just
Okay.
because these deadlines might, these RFPs might start coming out, so I just feel like
Yeah.
we wanna grab it, so.
Yeah.
So
So
we-
It's only, it's like a 2-pager. it's nothing
Which
exciting.
meeting is it you're gonna try to?
The
come back
second.
on? The second?
second.
The second, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
And
Yeah.
can you put on that, I'll report out on whether the library grant program too,
Yeah,
for the library building, because I'll know it'll be after the webinar.
okay, great, yes,
So we'll
If this-
know, like, is there a max
Can make a decision on the,
on the minutes.
I assume on the,
The agenda.
agenda, Diane?
I'm sorry.
That's okay, we're having a
was-
little offline
I was
conversation,
just
sorry.
uh,
No, no.
making sure that this committee can make a decision on a proposal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, so,
Select board
well,
gave you that-
what
gave
we
you
could,
the Power. so to
we'll
speak?
still, we should make a decision about a recommendation to the select board.
Okay,
Okay, and it's not, it's a 5-minute discussion at the select board level.
But they've already approved
They've,
accepting this grant.
we've approved, the select board approved accepting this grant and your services.
Right.
And the select board doesn't have the time to do what we just did.
Right.
with you.
Yeah.
So, that's, the select board expects this committee to, do the detail stuff and whenever there's a decision to make.
Mhm.
We make a recommendation to the select board.
Whatever, whatever your process is that works for you all, it's fine by me. I won't get in the way of that. So, Good. I'm sorry I took so much of your time. I
No,
apologize.
that's okay.
I know
Well,
you.
we
This is
can't-
really useful.
We probably aren't doing.
Do you want to-
GE.
I'll volunteer to be the contact person for you.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier for me to have kind of one main
Yeah.
person and then you can distribute
Yeah.
and certainly if you have things to send me, feel free, but.
Yeah.
um,
So Diane,
yeah.
do you deal with like the Preservation Trust grants at all?
Mhm.
Have you-
I do.
okay.
Yeah, I do.
Because the
It's usually the Bruin
grant
grants.
is coming
Yeah.
up March 31st. We applied last year and did not get it.
Do you know why?
Well, I just reached out to
Yeah,
Jenna
good.
and said,
Really important.
you
Yeah.
know, we did not have a real estimate
Oh, yeah. right.
either. And I think that was a ding, even though we
Yeah.
tried to
They weren't ready to go.
explain it.
Yeah.
And so,
We do now.
But
We have
we
lots of
do-
estimates now.
but we do need $100,000 to match it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm looking at ARPA money as grant matching money, not,
And is it
Not-
okay to match ARPA with federal? Because Bruin is federal money.
Katie says yes.
Okay, just,
yeah, that's,
Aware,
that
that's
was
always-
a
it's a
question that
tricky-
I had is.
yeah, those are always
Bruin
tricky.
is
Katie
federal.
says
'cause it's
yes. I don't know.
Money,
I
yeah.
think you have to double check with the grant that you're matching it to make sure that
Yeah.
it's okay.
I
to
will
have
ask
Federal
Jenna. I
funds
can
as
ask
a
Jenna.
matching.
I mean, if you do a bond, obviously, that.
We
could
have
be-
plenty of
Yeah.
match.
But,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
think ARPA doesn't care if you use it as a match, but if the grant that you're matching
Right.
it towards says no federal funds can be
But
matched.
you're saying that,
then
Bruin doesn't do that.
Bruin says
What?
Bruin would allow it.
I
Yes.
need to ask Jenna if
okay.
ARPA money, I didn't specifically
Okay,
ask her
yeah.
about ARPA money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then Ben Folds lives, the new president.
Yeah.
He lives in Richmond.
Ah, nice.
And they offered
That's
to
great.
convene a
Ooh,
funders
All
conference
funders
for
meeting.
us.
Good, do it.
So, yeah, and I don't know whether you want to be involved in that or,
Happy to, or at least,
yeah, it would. be
Mariah said
good.
she would help as well.
Yeah,
So-
that's, those are
So
real, those are
maybe we
great.
should reach out to Ben. Jenna
not get-
said Ben raised his hand and said he would do this for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
So
Perfect.
I think we should reach out to Ben.
Yeah.
And say, okay, we're ready.
Ben,
He's the Executive Director of Preservation Trust of Vermont.
And you've been talking to him about this building or?
He met you.
Yes, we did
You
walk the
gave him
building.
a tour.
Yeah.
I've been talking about both projects.
Okay.
both at the
Under-
library in here.
This and
Yeah,
here and
yeah,
the library.
yeah, yeah.
So,
and,
you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Put it in
there's
the
a
mix,
lot that
you know?
could-
Yeah, yeah, Bruin,
know?
I look, Bruin doesn't give out a lot. I mean, they
No,
only do
it's-
like 6 to 8. I have another client who
It
got
was
one and they were not that, I mean, they had a lot to work with, but they weren't that far ahead on the estimate. So it's interesting that that was, an issue.
68,000.
6 to 8, no, 6 to 8 grants, 6 to 8 grants. They don't,
Yeah, they
you know,
don't-
they don't
and
give,
they-
they give a
and
little bit
they-
higher money and they only have
Yeah.
625 a year, $625,000 a year. So some of them are 100,000, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and their emphasis was on improving economics, supporting economics. So I did a lot of research when I wrote the grant
Yeah.
about how do libraries contribute to the
Oh, yeah.
economics of your town and the location being downtown. And people don't have to drive, they can walk because they can
Yeah,
go to the
all of that-
market and,
all of that
the
fits for
walkable
this.
downtown.
Right.
But we didn't get it. And when I
Huh.
looked at the other
Yeah.
projects, they were all more like making community centers and
Yeah.
and supporting the old general store that was gonna close and,
Yeah.
Well, this is,
So-
this building has a lot of.
well, this
economic
is a different, whole different.
It has
whole
a lot of
thing.
economic development
But,
potential.
but it's probably not enough money. And the historic preservation grants do have restrictions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
So it's,
Yeah.
that's
But
definitely
I think
something.
that's stuff, and you're already on the state register anyway, so you've already
we're on
got
the
the
state
restrictions, so I
register,
don't
but not
think,
the national register.
yeah, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
That a Bruin grant would make you do much more than you would already,
We
I
have
mean,
to
you're
get on the
committed to
na-
doing that.
We
I have
to
clients
get
who are
it,
not
yeah.
committed to doing
We
that, and I
have
say,
to
don't do
get
it.
the National register, we would have to get
Yeah.
on the national.
But you
register
can
to
work that
accept it.
process, like, you don't have to have it
They
right
help
away.
you.
Yeah, they help you with it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
we're at time.
Yeah, time.
We're flying out first thing in the morning.
Oh, boy.
We've got
Safe
packed.
travel.
Yeah.